Welcome, everybody, to Connecting the Universe. I'm author and researcher Mike Ricksecker, back at you with another interactive class out of the secret library of the Connected Universe. Well, we have a fascinating episode up for you this evening. We are going to be diving into ancient secrets of America. Yeah, America is a lot more ancient than people have been giving it credit for quite a long time. Of course, we keep having a lot more of this information come across, like footprints that are 23,000 years old down in White Sands, other places across the country in which we are finding artifacts and remnants of human habitation that far, far predate what the General Convention had thought. And we're going to be visiting some of these different sites where the ancient Americans were, ancient Pueblans, and others, and some that we have no idea who they were. So before we get into all of that, I do want to let those know that are listening to the podcast version of this later. Please join us every Wednesday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, connecteduniverseportal.com. That is where you will find the live stream show where you can watch the videos that we're going to be presenting this evening, the slideshow, all of these photos and everything that you're listening to, but we'll actually get to see live. Also, those that are Connected Universe Portal members, you do get the after show. So we do have the public stream that runs on YouTube, the Mike Ricksecker YouTube channel, but we have that after show in which you can get more content as well. So that's connecteduniverseportal.com. Also on Patreon, we do go ahead and post that on the Patreon side as well. So it's patreon.com/Mike Ricksecker. But yeah, Connected Universe Portal, not only do you get the weekly interactive class like you are right now, but you get sneak peek and behind the scenes videos, monthly Q&As, exclusive articles, insider travel blogs like Ancient Egypt, the American Southwest, which you'll see this evening, Ireland, the UK adventure, all of these things, and so much more. So join us, connecteduniverseportal.com, and also there on Patreon. So do want to let those know that, hey, we are getting down to the wire here on the Egypt tour. So go to my website, mikericksecker.com, where go to the events tab there. And, if you've been wanting to join us for that Egypt tour, we really need to get those deposits in so we know what to book as far as hotels and number of rooms and all that. Registration officially closes September 11th, but it does help to have those numbers and everything ahead of time. So thank you in advance for all of that. And thank you in advance. Well, actually, thank you right now, Michelle Brandenburg, for sharing out the live stream tonight. See, Tom McNicholas is down in the house as well, and so many more. So, all right. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it this evening. So just this past week, Kate and I were visiting some of the more ancient historic locations around here, around Ohio. We have a lot of that in the southern area of the state. Why the southern area and not the northern area? Well, all those thousands of years ago, there was a glacier right where I'm sitting. So it would have been a little bit hard for ancient cultures to really develop a civilization on top of the glacier. I suppose they could have tried. Would have been really cold. They might have fallen into a crevasse and that sort of thing. But northern part of Ohio was covered in glacier. That's why, like the Cuyahoga Valley and some of these other areas, they were carved out by the glacier. But down in these southern regions, like we're going to start talking about Serpent Mound. That is where we are going first. Southern regions of the state, the peoples there at that time would have been looking right at the glacier. So yeah, we are going to be starting with Serpent Mound here. This is down there in Adams County, Ohio. It is the world's largest mound that is shaped like a serpent. It's over 1,300 feet long, almost 1,350 feet long. And this is, they tell us that this is a serpent effigy. And you can see that it has some interesting qualities, like it has the spiral tail. It has this interesting egg shape at the front, but in some of the illustrations, like the older illustrations, it almost looks like an eye. So in this particular one, you see kind of that eye that's there, and maybe instead of an egg. And then it also has these astronomical alignments to the winter solstice, the equinox sunrise, the summer solstice sunset. No, those are all sunrises. I'm sorry. The summer solstice sunset is outward from the head. So the coils over throughout the snake are for different sunrises, and then the head is for the summer solstice sunset. Now, there are alternative theories about how old this really is, in that the original mound builders for this may have been further back into ancient times, and were those that gazed out onto those glaciers, that perhaps from Serpent Mound they were actually, because it's basically up on this cliff. You walk along and it goes down there. It's not a huge cliff, but enough that you go jumping down there, you're going to get hurt, of course. But they could have been actually looking out at that glacier from Serpent Mound. So some interesting. We're going to get into some interesting facts about this. I do want to play a couple of clips here because, like I said, Kate and I were out at this just last week and had some really, really interesting experiences. So I'm going to start with this clip, which is really just an introduction to Serpent Mound, and we're going to get into some other things here. Hey everyone, here at Serpent Mound, one of the most ancient sites here in Ohio. And some really, really fantastic, energetic sites, astronomically aligned. And, it's just been a really kind of special day. You see I'm wearing the rain jacket here. And before we showed up, it was pouring rain all day long. We figured we were probably going to have to kind of run through the site. But Kate had put out there, well, let's see, what kind of power we have. Let's, actually put it out there to the universe that, for the rain to subside by the time we get there. And it was really pretty amazing because it was still raining a little bit when we first got here, but within the first few minutes of our walk into the site, the rain just stopped. Yeah, so really kind of a very powerful moment. I'm happy that it finally played. A real powerful moment there because, it had been pouring rain. Some of you may have heard about some of the flash floods there in southern Ohio last week. I know we've heard a lot about what's been going on in Texas here over the last several days, but there was some flash flooding there in southern Ohio as well. And so Kate put it out there for our power to stop the rain. When you put out that intention, when you try to manifest these things, and we got to the coil, and it was just it kind of tapered off to a bit of a drizzle, and then by the time we were done there at the coil of the tail, it had stopped, and then we ended up with blue skies. It was really, really pretty amazing there. And so this is a very, very powerful location, and there's really a lot more going on with it than has really been recognized. It gets chalked up as, it's this great snake effigy, that was part of the Native American culture. Yeah, but we still don't really know who built the thing. When we start talking about the ancient Native Americans, we're not talking about the ones that ended up living in that area by the time the English settlers moved in, like the Shawnee and some of these others. They were ancient ancestors of those peoples. And so, they don't even know really who they were, and these locations like this were there. So we do know that the area is an ancient impact crater from a meteorite that crashed into there. It is one of only 28 confirmed impact craters in the United States. Now, it occurred about 256 to 330 million years ago. So this is a long, long time ago. This definitely predates humanity. I mean, this is back when the dinosaurs were around and all that sort of thing. The dinosaurs went extinct 64 million years ago, and we're talking 256 to 330 million years. So 9 miles across. Now, could there have been like some interaction with humanoid type peoples, like Homo erectus and things like this? Possibly. So what's also interesting about this particular location is that there are those who believe, and it's, I know this gets chalked up to like an alternative theory, but there are those who believe that the Serpent Mound did have stones originally. And where this comes from is the original surveyors. So this is the original survey of it from the 1840s. So surveyors were Squire and Davis, and they published a book with all kinds of illustrations and information about what they called ancient monuments of the Mississippi Valley. That is the name of the book. And it's loaded with information on all these sites. We're going to see another one of their surveys here momentarily. But within this book, they talk about the stones that were there. So here's an excerpt from that, in which they say, the neck of the serpent is stretched out and slightly curved, and its mouth is opened wide as if in the act of swallowing or ejecting an oval figure, which rests partially within the distended jaws. This oval is formed by an embankment of earth without any perceptible opening, 4 feet in height, and is perfectly regular in outline, its transverse and conjugate diameters being 160 and 80 feet respectively. The ground within the oval is slightly elevated. A small circular elevation of large stones, much burned, once existed in its center, but they have been thrown down and scattered by some ignorant visitor, under the prevailing impression probably that gold was hidden beneath them. And so when you do look at some of these old illustrations of the Serpent Mound, you do find this, like what almost looks like an eye, this kind of raised area where these stones had once been. And when they're talking about, the ejection of the egg, it's like the this one in which they surveyed it. You have that egg shape with the dot in the middle. That's supposed to be the raised area where the stones were. And then the apparent snake with its kind of jaws opening to swallow the egg. So, we're getting that symbolism of, real ancient symbolism of, the snake, the serpent. That was our ancient symbol for a number of different things. I always talk about it, the ancient symbol of energy. So especially when we're talking, when I take it back to ancient Egypt, where we see it all over the world as well. Like, on the side there of Chichen Itza, we find it in Chinese geomancy. We find it throughout really the whole world. We find it in relation to healing as well as the eternal recycle renewal of the earth. Like when we're talking about the Ouroboros and things like this, very, very important symbol throughout the ancient world. When we're talking about the egg, is this the cosmic egg? And when we talk about the cosmic egg, this is really a symbol of creation, the creation of the world. And then when we're talking about the tail of this thing being a spiral, well, we talk all the time here about that spiral being the ancient symbol for portal. So we're getting some really, really fascinating imagery here with cosmic egg, creation, serpent, energy, eternal life and renewal, and of course, the portal. Really, really fascinating imagery. So, and then we talked about, okay, there were stones here. Where are the stones? Right down the hill. You go down that cliff and people have found these stones there. So I just grabbed this one off the internet. There's one of those stones there that's right down that steep hill or cliff, whichever one you want to call it. So I see some questions are coming in. We'll get to those in just a moment. I have one other clip here from Serpent Mound that I want to play because this was a really, really fascinating moment. I hope it plays. StreamYard had to go and change things up. So let's see what happens here. So we sat off on the side over here in the path. You're not allowed to, stand on the mounds or sit on the mounds or whatever. They want you to be able to, respect the site. So although somebody mows the lawn, obviously, so apparently they are allowed to walk on it. But so we sat down over here, did a little meditation session, got the, our feet on the ground and all that sort of thing. And it was really fascinating. So we saw, a little bit of different things, but, saw each other. I saw like the snake immediately when I first closed my eyes and all that, which was fantastic. But then when we came out of that meditative state, it was really, really interesting because Kate heard, to her it was like this, sort of high-pitched sort of noise, where to me it was like a rattle. We heard it from down the hill there, back on the other side of the mountain, to each side. It was like coming from all directions, there, then there, then there, then there. And then it stopped. And to me, the sound was like one of those ceremonial rattles. It was very, very strong, of course, indigenous, Native American connections here. Yeah, that was really, really interesting because we sat there for a good 10 minutes. And so for those that want to watch this entire segment here, I have that on the Connected Universe portal and also on the Patreon site, the whole, what I call it, like Ancient Ohio, Exploring Ancient Ohio. That's out there. So if you want to watch the whole thing. And it was really, really fascinating because we were sitting there for a good 10 minutes because it had rained. Not a lot of people were visiting the site. And so we were able to sit off on the side there. And yeah, I kind of made that joke that, yeah, we're not supposed to, step on the grass over there, but obviously somebody does because they have to mow it. But yeah, we just did a small meditation, had some interesting visions, different things that we saw. And I do explain that a bit more there on the portal video and the Patreon video. And when we were done with that, yeah, it was like boom, off to the left, boom, straight ahead of us, boom, behind us, boom, off to the left. It just, from side to side to side. Like I said, Kate heard it as that high pitched noise. I heard it. It was like a high pitched sort of almost like a rattle. And that was it. That was the only time we heard that, was directly after we did side to side, side to side. Done. Never heard it again the rest of the time that we were there. And it was just absolutely fascinating. So I took it that, we were receiving a blessing, that we had honored the land, that we had honored the site, and we were being blessed because we had provided it with that honor. It was really, really amazing. And yeah, Michelle, sounds incredible. It absolutely was. It was really, really incredible. And this is what, when we start sharing more of the adventures that Kate and I have had together, like some of our UK adventures and things like that, things like this happen. It's really, really wild. So yeah, and it is definitely a beautiful blessing. So let me get to, we're going to move on to the next site here in just a moment. Let me get to some of your comments and questions here. Tom, I am happy to hear that you sent Victoria a rubber raft, my co-hostess, friend, and cousin, Victoria Monday. She lives down in Texas, been dealing with the floods down there. And Jose, Mike, a bit off topic. Have you ever seen a Bigfoot in your area? I have not seen a Bigfoot in this area. However, part of our journey there, I'm not sharing it this evening, was through Hocking Hills. We stayed in a cabin overnight down there, and there have been Bigfoot reports and sightings down there. So, but it would not surprise me up here because we have a lot of park systems up in this area of the state. So, Jose, the tulpa, asking, basically what tulpa, mental manifestations to manifest a desire, tulpa. It is, so yeah, tulpa is the idea of the Buddhist thought form. So that idea that, that you're going to physically manifest something that you are, basically projecting out there to the universe. And so I've done I've done a couple of different classes on tulpas. I've got a short form video on tulpas all within this channel that you can find, a little bit beyond the scope for this evening, but it really, really is a fascinating topic. So, all right. So, and Tom is asking if we test for EMF. I did not have the EMF detectors out with me. I should have brought the dowsing rods, at least. And yeah, I could have brought the tri-field. We're in a little bit of a rush to get down there, and so I didn't bring like my whole kit. What I did bring was the drone. I brought the drone, and you'll see that here in just a moment with right here, the Great Circle Earthworks. I've been here a few times now. This is in Newark, Ohio, and really, really fascinating and amazing site. It's just, it's a shame how much of it has been really torn up. Not the Great Circle got preserved. The rest of it, oh my gosh. It's a shame. So I have 3 different clips from this one. I'll start with kind of the intro clip here, and then we'll kind of get into what exactly the Great Circle is. Back here once again at the Great Circle Earthworks. Always an incredible time coming here. There's so much energy here, and really you're talking a circular structure that is bigger by more than 100 feet than the circle of stones at Avebury, which is incredible because Avebury is like one of the biggest megalithic sites in the world, right? And here we are at this immensely huge circle. So yeah, it is actually by a little more than 100 feet bigger than the massive stone circle at Avebury in England, which Kate and I were just at, and we shared that footage there with the UK Adventures what was that, 2 months ago now? So yeah, absolutely incredible, the size of this thing. It doesn't have the stones, and I meant to provide a photo. I was kind of in a rush to get everything together this evening. I wanted to do a comparison, not with the Great Circle and Avebury, but the Great Circle and Grange Stone Circle out in Ireland, because when I went to Grange Stone Circle, that would have been 3 years ago now. And that is actually the largest stone circle in Ireland, but it pales in comparison to the size of the Great Circle. And what I noticed about it was how it was really just a miniature version of the Great Circle, except they had the stones added to it. It was like, when I walked up to it, I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before, just on a much bigger scale and without the stones. So there was definitely some sort of connection between peoples across continents. They weren't supposed to have had those connections, but they absolutely did, because you see similar type of architecture between these cultures. And this is something that we've talked about a lot here over the years. And it was just really, really fascinating when I first saw that at Grange. But it's something that gives us that, okay, here's a connection to another place here on Earth, which is really, really wonderful. So the Great Circle, so this was part of what they call the Hopewell culture. Now, the Hopewell culture, they never called themselves the Hopewell culture. This, again, is another one that predates the Native Americans that the English settlers became familiar with. And we don't really know who built these at all. Current archaeology says it was about 100 to 300 AD. Could always be older, of course. We always throw that caveat out there. Hopewell was the name of the guy, Mordecai Cloud Hopewell, because when they first started taking an interest in all of these different mounds, it was his property, his farm, that had a number of these. So basically they would say, yeah, we're going out to the Hopewell site. basically meaning Hopewell's farm, to go check out the mounds. And so it just became the Hopewell culture. So we really don't know who they were or what they were called. It's really, really sad what has happened to this site. So I mentioned we had another survey illustration, and here that is. So so Squire and Davis again. You can see it might be hard to tell. This just looks like a bunch of shapes. A few circles, which they're huge though. Remember, the Great Circle, which you see down there at the bottom center, is bigger than the stone circle at Avebury. Okay, you see up there another circle, and then what they call the Great Octagon. Absolutely huge. I have some aerial photos here of this is. Now, yes, it does look like a golf course, but you see the octagon, the road from the circle going into that area. Another angle of that where you see the circle over there. And yeah, it was a part of a golf course. They are allowing more of this to be accessible now to the public. It was before you had to go play golf to get out there to that particular site. The Great Circle's always been open and accessible. And it is Ohio's only UNESCO World Heritage Site. The golf course actually helped to save the octagon and the other circle out there, because everything else is pretty much gone. You have the Great Circle, the octagon, and the other circle. Everything else is pretty much gone. So, okay, remember that's our illustration. This is an overlay of that, and you can see how the city has just taken it over. So all of those like long roads that you saw, and those roads basically are walls, earthen walls that were there. They're all gone. The square is gone. That other whatever interesting feature that was at the upper right, that is all gone. That is actually the downtown historic city center and industrial area. It is all gone. It is horrible, absolutely horrible what happened to it. There are, so like I said, with the octagon and the other circle, that got saved by the golf course. With the Great Circle, it was the fairgrounds. So it became the county fairgrounds starting in 1854, which, it became used for a number of different things. There, you can see in this one, there's a track inside of it. After the Civil War in 1878, approximately 30,000 people, citizens and soldiers from Ohio, gathered here to hear speeches from President Rutherford B. Hayes and General William Tecumseh Sherman in honor of the grand reunion of the veteran soldiers and sailors of Ohio. The Octagon Earthworks was also the site of a militia campground in 1892, and later the Mound Builders Country Club in 1911, which of course then became the golf course. So there were things that happened to preserve it, but there were horrible things along the way that caused it to be preserved. Golf course, fairgrounds, there's a racetrack around it inside. It's like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? What in the world are you doing? So there is a site in the middle of the Great Circle called Eagle Mound. And I'll show that here. This is just a close-up of the Great Circle from the survey. And you kind of see that little X in the middle. It's not really an X. They kind of drew it in there like that. But really what it is, it's more like an arrow. So you have 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to show a clip here. 1, 2, 3 of the tip of the arrow. And then the fourth is in the back. So the original archaeologists working on this, actually, I should say the original I don't know, geologists maybe, because this was before archaeology was even a thing. That they said, "Oh yeah, this looks like it's in the shape of an eagle, so we'll call it Eagle Mound. It must be the effigy of an eagle." But we it's just really a random guess. So let me play this clip here. So this is the first time I brought Kate here. She is checking it out, of course, and she was immediately drawn to this spot. This is a part of Eagle Mound. What was fascinating about that is I hadn't told her about my last adventure here, which being on Eagle Mound here, you have this huge tree that's in the way, right? Well, last time I was here, I launched a drone off of here, and it was fully charged, and in less than 2 minutes, the battery was drained. It was gone, and so it came right back down. I told Kate that part of it, but I didn't tell her where on Eagle Mound that happened. She came right here to this spot, and this is the most energetic spot, and I'm like, that's where I had my battery drain. And so this time, though, had success with the drone. The thing is, it was different about this time. Before we came out here to Eagle Mound, we did a counterclockwise walk, starting from where you enter there, and we did a counterclockwise walk all the way around the circle, which honors the energies here. So I believe that because of that honoring of the energies here, I was able to successfully use the drone this time and get some interesting footage. Yeah, what's really interesting about the mounds that surround that thing is when you like park in the parking lot and you're looking at it, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I see it. It's kind of like a large bump that goes over, yeah, maybe 6-7 feet tall, maybe even 8, something like that. The thing is once you get inside the enclosure, and this is really what makes it a hinge, is the interior is burrowed out. It's like this long channel. And so this thing goes down really, really far. We're talking like 15, 20 feet. And so when you actually get inside there and you're looking at this thing, you're like, oh my God, this thing is huge. And everything is basically focused through that opening. So from let me bring up the photo again. So from that opening there, you can see to the northeast. That comes in straight to Eagle Mound, like all of it. And so it's that that alignment there, that energy that is coming in. And this is, so of course we did a meditation here, and it really makes a lot of sense to me. I'm thinking this may have also been a location that probably had some sort of stones or something like this. Definitely don't think it was an eagle, because it's like, okay, I do have the photo here. You can kind of see, thankfully, with the shading of the tree there, you can kind of see that vertical bump. You have that at all 4 locations. So it's not just like this straight little, mound effigy. Kind of like when you take a look at the Great Serpent, even though it's snakes around, pun intended, it's really, the same level, the same height, even though it goes down the hill, the mound itself is relatively like the same height. Now with Eagle Mound, it's those 4 bumps, and then they kind of slope down until you get to the next bump. And so, which you wouldn't have with an eagle, it's just, let me try to explain this a little bit better in this clip. You have these distinct 4 points, and really kind of like an arrow. It's all pointed right back here to the most energetic spot. So you have that energy that's coming in from the opening there in the circle, that eastern rising sun into here, I believe, hitting these 3 spots and focusing their energy back to here. And when we did a meditation right there earlier, it's essentially what I was seeing. Yeah, so we're going to do some more research on that, because I really think that this was energy and power being focused into Eagle Mound. Those 3 points focusing in on the one. And there's also, you kind of see it in these older illustrations, there's like a curve, almost like a little parenthesis that's back behind it. And it's not really there now. Probably it probably got obliterated by the fairgrounds, but that could have like maybe been like a retaining wall to help keep that energy in close. So something more for us to look into. I do want to move on a little bit from this because we have some more things to cover, and I do want to get some of these questions. So we have a lot of things that's going on. Colleen, yes, definitely devastatingly sad. It was very, very sad. And yeah, Michelle, could very much be like a battery. Absolutely like a battery. And yeah, interesting that you hadn't heard of it. So there's another set. Well, there's different mounds like these all throughout Ohio and some other states as well. What they call the Hopewell culture. We passed by another set there in Chillicothe, which is on the way down to the Serpent Mound, and that site at Chillicothe is like 60 miles difference, and it is perfectly aligned with the Great Circle Earthworks. So really, really interesting. Jose, have I ever witnessed a portal? If so, what does it look like? I have. We'll try to come back around to that question here in a little while if we have time for that, because that's like a whole other story. Portals to the stars back there. Talk a lot about portals there. But we're definitely seeing some of that portal type symbolism like we were seeing there at Serpent Mound with the Spiro. That's a part of it. What's going on here at the Great Circle very well could have also been some sort of portal, definitely harnessing of energy for some purpose. Was that to open up a portal or a stargate? Perhaps it was. So, all right. So we're going to move on a little bit here. So we're kind of move toward the west. We got about 20 minutes here. We'll see how this goes. And so as you start moving westward, and there's all kinds of other stuff around, when you could go south into Alabama, like Moundsville, some of these other places, you have Moundsville there in, West Virginia, where they have the mound there right by the prison. A lot of places, unfortunately, so many of these mounds and earthworks got tilled up for farmland over the years. I already showed what happened there in Newark, where most of this fantastic site is gone. And unfortunately, that happens so much across the United States. So one that still is there is Cahokia Mounds in Illinois, right across the Mississippi River from St. Louis. And it's really a fascinating location. I filmed part of the Shadow Dimension there. So I'm actually going to share a clip of the Shadow Dimension. This is from episode number 5. And I was supposed to put a couple of links to the Shadow Dimension and where it airs down in the description. I will go back and do that after this show completes. So I'm going to go ahead and share that clip from the Shadow Dimension here.
Behind me is Monk's Mound, part of Behind me is Monk's Mound, part of the Cahokia complex, which is right here along the Mississippi River, right down the road from Alton, where we're going to be investigating Mineral Springs. Now, this dates all the way back to about 900 AD, and in 1250 AD, around that time, there was actually more of a population around here than in London, England. Now, the mound itself was part of a temple complex, and there was actually a structure that had been on top of there. And again, when we go back into those ancient cultures, they would build structures like this in order to harness that earth energy. And this happens to be the largest pyramid north of Mesoamerica.
When we look in the ancient world and how they built their temples, and we're talking about pyramids here, we're talking about obelisks. These places and how they built them and where they put things was no accident. They were tapping directly into these energy fields and circuits on the earth.
There are some wonderful vortices out at Cahokia. You gotta be patient and feel for them, but they're there. And again, that's why he picked the place. It's because the energy was so good. And settlers came through here, those guys were long gone. And so we really don't know exactly what happened up there. I worked in archaeology for a few years and at a suburb of Cahokia, and we know where they were, we knew kind of what they did, we knew what they ate, how they carried their food, that kind of stuff. We don't know exactly how they did ceremony. Yeah, you go up there on top there, and it's kind of, you kind of feel that exhilaration like something was on there. But again, those people, they had almost 20,000 people at one time doing their thing, and so that leaves an imprint.
Not only does it make it easier to travel between dimensions, but I believe this is one of the key fundamental principles of how they powered up stargates on this earth. I believe that what we are seeing with these ancient consciousness technologies and transmitters or transmuters of energy that were tapping into these energy fields on the earth, they were essential pathways. They were highways. There's these areas of the earth that were very important to this, a grid, you could say, and they were sort of plugging into it, that these very specific places of power. So if you look at areas like where the Giza Plateau is in Egypt, that's over in Africa. This is an area that our geologists and others say should be riddled with earthquakes, should be surrounded and filled with earthquakes, and there should be fault lines across there, but there are no earthquakes there. There are very specific reasons for why they built the Great Pyramid where it is, in its configurations, and very specific places where our ancient temples are located. These places are tapping into fields of unbelievable energy, and I believe they're still active to this day.
The reason people flocked to these things because these guys, they think these guys have big juju, these guys have big medicine. And that type of place where that power and the vortices are there, they can feel that and they say, wow, these guys got it together, we want to be with them. But basically it becomes about, I can do this and I've got this power and the power is here, and people can feel it and say, okay. And but it's also when you're doing ceremony, it also helps you get into a heightened state of awareness because you're that much closer to the spirit world because that's the gates to the spirit world.
It makes you wonder, in their ceremonies, in their worship, did they harness that vortex energy from the earth? Did they open portals here on top of Monk's Mound? Is there a reason they set this up here? This is an earthwork, a giant earthwork. There are many of them scattered across the United States, but why did they select this location along the Mississippi River? Is there something special about the energy field here?
We also know that pyramids are not unique to Egypt. We find them all over the world. They're on both sides of the Atlantic. These are generating and holding incredible amounts of energy. And when we look at where they're being placed on these sacred sites and tapping into this energy, you might say that there is a form of an ancient consciousness technology here that we're just beginning to understand.
Okay, so I'm on top of Cahokia here. It's a long trek up the stairs, so it's a little bit of a workout, but you got St. Louis right across the river over there, and then a little bit further up the river, of course, is Alton. From up here, you can see some of the other mounds that are over there, a couple back there too. On the other side of the one there, you can probably barely see it. There used to be a wood hinge, so there are a lot of those type of ceremonial structures that were in this area, harnessing that energy from the earth for their own ceremonial purposes. Of course, a little bit different here in America than perhaps over in Europe or even in Egypt or South America. But basically, the concepts are still the same. They're still trying to do the same thing, even if their rituals may have been a little bit different. But they all had some similarities too, which is the wild thing. You had all these cultures from all over the world that still had these similar concepts of harnessing that earth energy. They knew what they were trying to tap into, and it's knowledge that we have lost over time.
Yeah, Shadow Dimension came out about 4 years ago. Hard to believe that the second installment of that, well, hoping that is out this fall. I know I've been promising that for a long, long time. Yeah, Tom McNicholas, who is in that, points out, yes, it is on Tubi TV. You can find it on the Roku channel. For those overseas, probably the best place to grab that would be Filmzy, which is a Slovakian streaming company. And there's some other places that can be found as well, but those are kind of like the three primary ones. So, Shadow Dimension. You can also go to shadowdimension.com and find links there. So Colleen, yeah, find it amazing how Americans seem to think our human history here started with Columbus, how truly ancient history has been ignored. Yeah, that's unfortunately, that was a thought process that was really, really rampant, especially through the 1800s, the early days of the Smithsonian, where I forget the guy's name offhand, but basically his edict was, if it was pre-Columbian, that we're just going to toss it out. It was just those were heathens and it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It's just from Columbus and onward. And unfortunately, because of that, we lost a lot of our ancient history here in America. And fortunately, that attitude has changed, but because we have lost so much over time, what we have left are really the scant fragments of the history of this continent. So, and our country, which is really a shame. So, Cahokia, really, really fascinating. The largest pyramid north of Mesoamerica. It's a very, very large earthwork. This is an artist's interpretation of the site from back in ancient times. And when Cahokia was in its full glory, it was running right alongside with early London. And when it was in its full glory, it had a higher population at that time than London did out in Europe. And London was like, one of the largest cities in the world at that point. And here's Cahokia, just with an even bigger population. So really, really amazing what they were able to accomplish there. And then gone, abandoned. And we're not really sure why. There was that speculation that they just used up all the resources, had to abandon it and go, which seems a little bizarre because, when we look at our Native American cultures across the continent, they were always very, very cognizant of their resources and to not deplete themselves. So for that to be the reason as to why the Cahokia civilization just suddenly devolved, or dissolved, just seems a little bizarre. So it's we're gonna have a lot of time to spend on that. We're going to move down, not the Mississippi. We're going to move down the Arkansas River and check out Spiro Mounds. So this is an aerial view of Brown Mound at Spiro Mounds. This is in Oklahoma, just to the west of the Arkansas River. And it's an interesting location. Again, you have these sad tales. So Spiro Mounds, believed to be 800 to 1450 AD. It's the only ancient archaeological site in Oklahoma that is open to the public. And it's this mound here where there is the real tragedy. So in the 1930s, it was just absolutely looted, totally desecrated. They dug into it looking for treasures. We're talking during the Great Depression, and they were trying to dig up treasures to, make a few dollars, sell them off, and have a few coins to rub together. So really, really horrible as to what happened there. That was the only burial mound on the site, and that is something to note here, is that 80% of the mounds across America are not burial mounds. And it's more, it's upwards, more than 80%, but that's kind of the round figure that they give, that most are not burial mounds. So when we look at this entire site, and here's kind of a map of the area, and actually here's an artist's representation of it, Herb Rowe. Most of these mounds were not burial mounds. They had other functions to them. In fact, the central mound there at Spiro, which they call Brown Mound, was actually an ancient temple. So it's an ancient temple site that was there. And I will tell you this, it was extremely, extremely powerful. We'll get into that in a moment, because the burial mound as well, which is known as Craig Mound, is also supposed to be very powerful. Now, at this site, you can climb up the mounds, except for the burial mound. You do not climb up in the burial mound. It's an interesting story that came out of there, I think it was like 100 years ago. And one woman who once had a cabin on the same property as the mounds reported that on dark nights, Blue flames would shimmer around the mound and strange noises would emanate from it. One night, a loud noise from the mound woke her, and looking out, she was frightened to see a team of ghost cats harnessed tandem fashion to a small wagon, which they were pulling around and around the summit. So if you can imagine on that large burial mound, this team of ghost cats carrying a wagon around and around her is interesting. The blue flames, I can certainly see that because you have a lot of reports of things like blue flames, blue lights, and these sorts of things, whether it's around mounds or on different sacred sites or places that are known to have like ancient sites of power and these sorts of things. The ghost cats I'm a little bit more skeptical about, but still very, very interesting. And that's the burial mound, Craig Mound. But Brown Mound, so you can kind of see there a line going through. You see obviously the path going around it, but then there is another line through it, and that is a line that they cut with the lawnmower because they're allowing you up on the mound. And so I was out there one night for paranormal investigation. This was probably like 7 or 8 years ago. I was out there for an event in Arkansas, and we had access to the grounds for an investigation that night. And what was really, really fascinating, I was running a live stream, which I believe can still be found here on the YouTube channel. And now we're out in a kind of more rural part of Oklahoma. So yeah, the signal's a little sketchy, but you would think going up on top of the mound, I'd be able to get closer to an open signal. I wouldn't be blocked by the trees or anything like that. I would have better access to an open signal. Nope. The signal would just cut out while I was up there. It was absolutely horrible. It would just, I couldn't keep the feed up. It was terrible. And walk down from the mound, and all of a sudden, I would get signal again. So I went back and grabbed a little clip of that. As I say that.
Yeah.
All right. So we tried this earlier. So pendulum that I got from my friend, I decided that I wanted to try, a more ancient technique since we were up here on ancient mounds. So we're gonna try this once again. The connection was breaking up a bunch when we tried this before. I don't know. I mean, maybe our connection with the spirit just grabbed some sort of power, and I don't know. Not you. Hey, whoever's over there, just back up a little bit.
Look.
All right, good. We have the stream back.
As soon as you...
Okay, Zippy is asking, is it me or the connection is really bad? No. I think the mound is interfering with the signal. I mean, we're actually more out in the open on the mound than we were in the woods. So I think it was when the signal went out over here, when you guys lost connection, I was trying stuff with the pendulum. That light kicked on. So just all kinds of stuff. Okay.
I really want to get up on top of the big one, but it's grown up.
Yeah, that's really overgrown up there.
Yeah.
So if you guys can see us, we're getting off the mound. There's the other one. Okay. And we're connected again as we come down off the mound. So, sorry about that. We purposely tested that out. Yeah, it happened earlier in the evening, and then we did some other investigating because it kept having problems with the stream. Did some other investigating, and went back up again to test it. And at first it's like, okay, it looks a little blurry, and I'm trying to use the pendulum, and then it like totally cuts out, and all of a sudden the feed is kind of like black, and we're like in a different setting. Well, that was a huge gap of time, from you seeing me with the pendulum to when that picked up, because the feed just totally gave out. Is totally gone. And so we were coming back down off the mound. I'm trying to explain it. One of the people in the chat there, Zippy, was wondering if it was, his feed. And it's like, no. It's my feed off the top of the mound. And so, that just adheres to the idea that there was a reason why they built the temple there. And that's because that location had this an amazing energy that they were tapping into for whatever they were doing at the temple. We can speculate all day as to what they were doing at the temple. We don't have records of those ceremonies. And that's kind of what in the Cahokia segment there with Coyote Chris Sutton, which, a good friend of ours who passed away a few years ago, was talking about that. We know what they ate. We know what they wore. All these different artifacts and things that we've been able to pick up, and so we have an idea of some of their lifestyle and their day-to-day life, but we don't know how they did ceremony. So that's another side effect there of the mounds, or of researching these ancient cultures. We know that they did something, but we don't know exactly what that was. So what exactly were they using that power of that spot for? Not sure, but it was powerful enough to basically knock out my phone, that I couldn't keep a straight feed going on. So it was really, really interesting. And so, yeah, Diana, looks like a question here. How special that you guys got to be there right in the midst of all that amazing energy. Do you feel like you carried some of the magic from that place back home with you? Yeah, I always do. I always do, Diana, that when you go to these different ancient sites, that you're carrying a lot of that energy back with you, that you take a piece of it back with you. Kate has a necklace that she wears, that she has worn, that she's always worn whenever she goes to an ancient site, and she's basically collecting that energy within that necklace. So yeah, you can definitely feel that energy. You can definitely take it with you inside your being, and then bring some sort of artifact with you as well to harness some of that knowledge. Yeah, great to see you down there, Sage. Wonderful. So we're almost at the end here. We'll run it a few more minutes, just a touch longer here. I'm going to show, take it to the, even further west, Chaco Canyon, one of my favorite locations. Absolutely love it out there. Going to do some more exploring, and, I kind of have to show this clip because the thumbnail for tonight's show shows the Great Kiva at Chaco Canyon, but it's a really, really fascinating location. So some of the earlier questions about UFOs and things like this. This is where the star people are at. Well, the star people are everywhere, but this is where you see those petroglyphs of the star people using portals to interact with the humans and pass on knowledge.
Back at Pueblo.
It'll play.
Back at Pueblo.
Come on.
Back at Pueblo Bonito.
Change things here. Try it again.
Back at Pueblo Bonito. This is really one of my...
Doesn't want to.
Back at Pueblo Bonito. This is really...
One more time.
Back at Pueblo Bonito. Back at Pueblo Bonito. This is really one of my favorite historical locations, especially in the United States. A little bit windy out here, I know. Hopefully the microphone will be all right. But yeah, this is some place that I had always wanted to get out to. If you can believe, originally inspired by the Tex Murphy video games from the 1990s. In one of those, you actually come out to these ruins and uncover some of the secrets. And when I played that, it was like, oh man, this is a place that I really want to get out to. And finally, 3 years ago, I was finally able to get out here. Spent about 6 hours in Chaco Canyon, 5 of them right here at Pueblo Bonito. There are a lot of secrets here to uncover, but right over here...
And it died right in the middle of it. Oh my gosh. We got 37 seconds into it and it died. We'll try one more time. If not, I'm going to have to append it to the end of the, it'll have to be on the portal feed, the portal upload. And then, well, Spotify does the video podcast that you can watch. Unfortunately, I can't go back on YouTube and add anything, but we'll try this one more time.
Back at Pueblo Bonito. This is really one of my favorite historical locations, especially in the United States. A little bit windy out here, I know. Hopefully the microphone will be all right. But yeah, this is some place that I had always wanted to get out to. If you can believe, originally inspired by the Tex Murphy video games from the 1990s. In one of those, you actually come out to these ruins and uncover some of the secrets. And when I had played that, it was like, oh man, this is a place that I really want to get out to. And finally, 3 years ago, I was finally able to get out here. Spent about 6 hours in Chaco Canyon, 5 of them right here at Pueblo Bonito. There are a lot of secrets here to uncover, but right over here on the
Yeah, sorry, folks. Yeah, you know, I don't understand why they had to go and make a mess of things. This is something Christina Gomez and I were talking about this the other week when I was on her show. Just that the reliability of the platform has gone downhill. One of the things that we do, like when we do interview shows, the uploads, because they're each individual from each person, it just ends up taking forever to do those uploads. It's just, yeah, it's really, really gone downhill. So I'm sorry we could not play that for the portal. I will go ahead and upload that and make sure that I'll append it to the feed, and I'll clean it up too for the portal and for Patreon as well, because all those little gaps earlier, you guys don't want that stuff in there. So I do encourage portal members that are out here this evening or watching later, go to the portal, go to Patreon, and you'll be able to catch the full thing there. So that is pretty much going to go ahead and wrap it up. Let me see if there are any last minute questions here. Oh, so Jose had that question earlier about ever witness a portal, what do they look like? So one of the things that I postulate, I can never do that right. My finger pointed the right direction. Portals to the stars. One of the things that I postulate in there, when we talk about portals, I mean, a lot of times portals are going to be, and I tell people this, you are the Stargate, because you are, because you yourself can be that portal. You can take yourself to different places. There are portals randomly occurring in nature. Stargates are intelligent beings' ability to harness that portal and use it to their own will. But then there are others in nature. I think some are invisible. People that go missing out in the woods, step into something, and all of a sudden they're gone. You didn't see a thing, and it's just gone. Like the portals out in space, the X points. Well, we don't really see those with our naked eye. We know they open and close. We've been able to observe those. NASA has satellites studying those. But then I think a lot of, this is the thing that I postulate in the book, is that a lot of our illuminated balls of lights are the actual portals themselves. Our theoretical physics, when we get into Einstein-Rosen bridge, wormholes, these sorts of things, the entry and exit points of those aren't just some, it's not just a tube sitting up there in space. With the opening of that tube, that tunnel, would be a circle. It's not a circle. Circle's a two-dimensional object. In three-dimensional space, that's a sphere. And so in Interstellar, the film Interstellar does a good job of depicting this. They had Kip Thorne, a renowned physicist, that consulted on that film, and they did a good job of showing that spherical hole from our solar system to another. Well, keep that in mind when you're seeing these different balls of lights. And in conjunction with those balls of lights, a lot of people are seeing things like Sasquatch, extraterrestrials, UFOs, the whole big drone flap. People are seeing drones going in and out of those balls of light. So I believe a lot of those balls of light are actually the portals themselves that different beings and craft and these sorts of things are using to move in and out of, whether it's another dimension, whether it's some other point in the cosmos, could be another point in time, all of these different things. So, and I have seen several different balls of light for sure. So, yeah, so I hope that answers that question. You can get kind of like deeper in that in Portals to the Stars. So, and yeah, Tom, you can do a narrative over the windy audio. Yeah, that clip from Chaco, it gets really windy there in Chaco. when you get over to the wall by the petroglyphs, which was later on in that film, in that little video clip, it's the wind basically subsides, the cliff face blocks it. So, all right, everybody, that will do it for this evening. There's going to be no after show this evening. Tonight, I have to jump right into another podcast here. I'm going to be on Jimmy Church's show. So if anybody wants to keep up with this continuing discussion, because we're going to be talking about a lot of these different things on his show, Fade to Black, later this evening. I have to jump on a call with him soon to do the audio and visual check. But at 10 p.m. Eastern, I'll be on Fade to Black. And and then tomorrow I am hitting the air once again. So, all right, everybody, have a great night. Till next time, if time really exists.